10 seconds in its time,
Well,
according to my.
my watch says 6 o'clock. Good evening, we'll call this meeting to order. It's a special meeting. It's May 3rd, 6 p.m. It is for planning and steering committee items. If everybody would stand and Director McVeigh, if you would lead us in the pledge.
Be happy to. I pledge
Allegiance
to the flag
Of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, we'll start down here.
You what?
Roll call, we'll let you introduce yourself.
Terry Lincoln.
Scott Lee.
Pam Beaver.
Erwin Fuss.
And Chair Beverly Fickus. And with this also, we have General Manager Paul Kelly and Administrative Assistant Kayla Falks. So open time, public comments. Anyone wishing to speak at this time on items not on the agenda?
Well, it's on here.
Can I state your name?
Emily Rankin.
Thank you.
So I just want to let you guys know how I worked on these and compiled them. So I looked at what Clear Creek Community Service District had. I also looked at Shasta Community Service District, Centerville, Bella Vista, and Contra Costa. I would like to make the recommendation that after we get all of these policies, how we want them, that they be compiled into one document with an index and the pages numbered. There's a few more things that I think we want to add to the general admin policy. Some that
We can talk about those when we get there.
talked about. And then, since this, 5 more are ready for you guys to look at. That I've worked on: workplace violence, surplus property, trespassers property, travel guidelines, reimbursement, and the will service letter policy, which we did not have one before.
And the will service, what does that mean?
A will serve letter.
Yeah, will
Policy,
serve letter. So when
We
there's
do that.
construction, a lot of times the lender will make the person, the owner of the property, get a will serve letter saying that we will supply water to them. So that's what that's all about. We didn't have one in the past. And so I just looked at other sites, looked at what we had. I also did some research on some of them. I got there was free samples that came from workman's comp insurance companies and a government site that I used, and just kind of meshed together, changed in my own wording, changed wording to apply to this and whatever. So it's a basis for us to
Thank you,
get
Emily.
started here.
Thank you. Anyone else? So we have no consent. Number 5, there's on the consent calendar, we don't have anything. So we are on old business, new business, discussion and action. And first up, policies and procedures, the general administrative policy update discussion.
Well, Madam Chair, I just, actually Emily did a very good job of introducing it, but I want to enhance this by saying that a couple of these policies we took to the Planning and Steering Committee meeting 6 weeks ago, and they had directed us to update this admin policy, bring it back for review, also look at the reserve policy. You might recall that was back from 2008. And then we found some other ones here that we could update. So that's why we have the general administrative policies, reserve policy, vehicle policy, water theft policy, and fraud policies. And then I was going to mention all the other ones. But that is here's the stack that Emily's been working on that's for next time. But just to mention, just maybe preempt the ultimate discussion, one of the things that I've seen in the past, and I think we found a copy of Bella Vista's actually. So they actually do have a policy manual that policy manual, they have all their indexes, so they got their general policies, their water service, their agriculture, their land divisions, annexations. They've got their, all the other, they're basically all in one place. And I think one thing that we have found is that we're looking for our district policies, we got a lot of them on the website, all in PDF, none of them in Word documents, so bless Emily for actually starting to put everything in Word documents so that we can actually edit them. So eventually, I think there's some real value in having them all in one place. And there are definitely other ones that are gonna take a little longer. I really, as I reported to the committee, the water shortage and drought planning, document, last done in 2010, needs to be updated. No better time to update it when you're not in a drought, but the stages need to be laid out. So on the first one here, the admin policies. First of all, you can see that our volunteers nicely put down a little heading at the top, which has just some different dates and different things about it that we have not had on other policies. So I think there's some value in having, what the type is, who's administering it, when it was last updated, and kind of when it's next to be updated and looked at. So we did, there's a lot of edits. You'll see these mostly, if you printed it in colored, you've got and what I really want to do is just go through this and have all the board provide updates and information. But you see you've got your board of directors section. We did, as add in the correct training, Brown Act ethics and sexual harassment. We also added in the date that the Form 700s are due. We did remove the personnel committee. We added some things to the committee responsibilities. Again, this is what we want to talk about. We got the roles there. There's some references, like on page 3, which by the way, we need page numbers. The ethics and whistleblower, that's 2004. That needs to be updated and actually attached at some point. Same thing on the expense reimbursement. That's going to be another one that we're working on to get updated. I think Kayla, who's been handling a lot of our HR stuff, has some ideas and additional items that we want to have in our personnel file, so we'll get to that. And then we moved the cash item, and then one of the things we noticed in an old administrative policies that somehow got removed the last couple of times it got updated. At the end, it actually had a records retention schedule. So we may want to consider having a specified records retention schedule, because currently our default is what JPIA recommends. And JPIA says basically keep everything forever.
Madam Chairman, I thought as far as record retention, the state of California has laid out what needs to be retained and for how long.
Well, there is, my understanding is they do have the guidelines, the minimums, I guess, for want of a better term, that we would have some discretion to keep things longer or not shorter.
Not shorter.
But one of the things that, again, new staff here, we'll definitely look into that, but we've been going on really Aqua JPIA's recommendation, and pretty much they say they say keep everything. Well, we don't need an invoice from 2005 that paid for pencils at Office Depot. I mean, we just don't need that anymore, I don't think. So we probably need some of that stuff for 5 years. We need other things for 7. Obviously, board minutes and a bunch of other things like that. Those are forever. We're supposed to keep all those stuff forever. So with that, Madam Chair, I would just suggest having all of us walk through We've got 3 of us striding away to take the
All right.
recommendation.
Page 1, organizational structure. So I have concerns, so Erwin, you wanna go first? I see you've got some marks on
Yeah, I
yours.
got some marks here. Under the board of directors, things that the board of directors does, one of the things down at the bottom, it says voting for members of LAFCO number 8, and it should be also appointing the EAGSA representative.
Right.
And I particularly like the
Do
sentence,
you want it number 9?
yeah, number 9, I guess would work.
So,
Just as long as it's in there, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
appoint EAGSA member,
EAGSA representative.
commissioner, is it a commissioner?
Director.
No, it's a director. And I think we also, and it just comes to mind that in the past, we've also appointed an alternate as well.
Right, and you're the alternate.
And I'm the alternate.
Right. Yeah, for that great pay we get.
Supposed to be under the great pay we get here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just wanna commend, whoever wrote all this. It says, in the next paragraph, it says, the board does not act in an administrative capacity. That is all important.
Yep.
We're not mini managers, micromanagers.
Yeah, again, it was a good one. I know, I think we stole that from some other administrative policy somewhere out there. My suggestion is we just get
I
rid
think
of.
from Contra Costa.
That's fine.
Page 1, any comments?
I didn't have any on that one.
Page 1,
No, just
okay,
Just the
page 1,
EAGSA.
Sam? No, I'm fine. Okay, so page 1 for Beverly, the last paragraph says the board is responsible for hiring and periodically evaluating annually the general manager. Do we need anything about, salary?
No, that's part of the evaluation.
That's probably part of the evaluation,
No.
if you wanna
Well,
consider that.
I think maybe we want to make it clear that the board also is responsible for hiring. Yeah, that's great, but we also need something in there that says, and approving the, agreement, the work.
Or salary
agreement.
package or something.
And
Well,
I think if we just have,
Package
if
because
if
it's.
we have, if we have basically the employment agreement that they approve, that has all the work conditions, salary and everything else.
Periodically, maybe we should say periodically evaluating the employment agreement then.
Or contract, or
or
something.
contract.
Yeah.
Employment contract, including salary.
I just
Well,
think
it would be in there.
what
Yeah.
would be good about that is just having that in there just to make sure, because as we know, in the past, the board didn't necessarily have one with their general manager.
Nope.
What general manager in the past?
Just a question about it. I'm a little confused now that I read it a little bit. The board is responsible for hiring and periodically evaluating annually. What do you do it periodically?
Or annually, yeah, get rid of
Yeah,
periodically.
periodically.
Yeah.
And how, so, are you doing it annually, or are you doing it every 6 months?
No, it's
No.
annual.
It's
Yeah,
annually.
annually.
We did it
Yeah.
6 months because he was new.
New manager,
Well,
We
and,
signed
It's
the
on
whole
probation.
for a little.
and we put it in, yes, and put it in the agreement.
Yes.
That we wanted
Yes, we
first.
did.
So,
So, what are you calling that document called? Contract
an
agreement?
employment agreement.
And what, an employment agreement?
Yeah,
Okay.
It can be a contract.
and evaluating annually the employment agreement.
So how about if we say, the board is responsible for providing an employment agreement, hiring, and evaluating annually the general manager.
Okay,
I'd like the hiring before in front, I think. Hiring,
You wouldn't hire until after you've provided the agreement. Correct?
no, because the agreement can be negotiated. As far as some of the terms of the agreement.
But you wouldn't hire until you
Till
have the
after you
agreement
have that document
counted out.
signed.
I'm not gonna fight it.
okay, we are on to page 2.
We want the English teachers to help us with
All
correct.
right, we'll go with Erwin first again.
On page 2, the top of the page, it says each director must receive training every 2 years. And then it says each director must file the statement of economic interest form 700 annually, due by April 1st of each year. And it should be indicated that you have to file, not only do you file an annual, but you also file an assuming office statement, and you also file a leaving office statement.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
required.
So can you say that again, Aaron, what are you calling that?
Well,
An assuming office statement and a leaving office statement.
Okay.
Like, for instance, Pam has to file, because she's assuming office, she has to file a 700 form. In
Correct.
addition to that, she has to file the annual 700 form next year.
But they're given, what, 6 months to put that,
Yeah.
assuming?
I'm sure
I think
what it
it's
is.
6 months.
I think it's 90 days, but yeah, something.
Oh, I was told 6 months, but I did it in 30,
Same
so.
But anyway, just to be on the safe side, you gotta do an assuming office, and if you leave early, like anybody that quits, has to file a leaving office statement.
Okay.
And they should, and board members should know that, so that they don't get caught, because if you get caught doing that, the Fair Political Practices Commission sends you letters.
So
And they're
anything,
not nice letters.
Yeah.
anything else on this page 2 for you?
Yeah, one thing I had down here, I was a little confused about this, because it says the committee responsibilities. When you get down to number 3, the board's standing planning and steering committee shall be concerned with the formulation of plans and policies for arranging, realizing, and or achieving CCCSD daily operations and goals. I'm not sure I fully understand that.
Me
The
either.
the language that we developed, before this board, when I was on the board, and you guys weren't on the board back then, when we developed the 3 standing committees, agriculture, financial, and planning and steering, was that the planning and steering was gonna be more than just looking at the administrative policies. It was gonna be looking at not only that, but also planning for the future development of things that's gonna happen in this district.
5-10-year master plan.
Yeah, master plan thing, well, we gotta do a master plan in 5 years anyway.
Right.
Well, the 2017 administrative policy only really had what the financial committee's responsibilities was. So wherever that went for planning and
Yeah.
steering, it dropped by the wayside.
Well, it was still part of it, and it's in the records, and if you don't have it in the records, Paul, I can go find it. I got it somewhere.
So, Erwin, you don't think achieving daily operations and goals satisfies that?
No, I'm talking about future operations. I mean, what are we gonna do in the future?
Planning for the future.
Planning for the future.
Exactly, but you don't think that's goals?
Not clarified well.
If
enough.
we don't,
Planning for
if we
future
don't have
goals.
some way of looking to the future to
Daily
develop
operations.
future,
How about if we just
policies.
put future before the word goals? Does that
well,
work?
we have
Yeah.
the language for that, if we.
I wouldn't say policies, though.
I beg pardon?
I wouldn't say policies, but future, goals, meaning more your infrastructure and
Yeah.
other things
We-
like
we
that.
know-
Planning for the
instance, we
future.
know that this year we have to do a capital improvement plan. Gotta get that done. That's part of looking at the future.
Right.
And we know that in the future, we're gonna have to look at more of our pipes in the ground and valves in the ground to see whether we can find, grants to fix the rest of that.
Water treatment plant.
And improve them and even expand them if necessary, wherever we get growth in this area. So we have to do that. We need to look at the wells, for instance, and see if the wells that we have today are gonna be able to service us in the future. I don't think they will be, considering what's been happening in the last 10 years around here. So we need some way of having some kind of a committee that would do that. Now, now the other thing that you could do is not have a committee do that, but just have a committee of the board do it, like we're doing it today.
So, Madam Chair, I think we'll go back and look and see what was there before, but my suggestion is, at least for this one edit would be, the planning chair shall be concerned with formulation of plans for future capital planning and policies for arranging and realizing or achieving daily operations goals, so.
And it could be
So the
updated,
plans are kind of now and into the future, and
Okay.
the policies are for current daily things, right?
or updating policies. So my word was updating to add, maybe that would help,
Yeah, that's fine,
because that's what they're doing. is-
updating or reviewing,
Yeah,
Paul, did you
yeah,
write it
or
down?
reviewing.
You did, yes?
Yeah.
So I don't have to.
So anything else
You'll
on
have
page
to
two
take
for
No, I
you?
didn't have anything.
So Director Lincoln, anything on page two?
I wondered about the goals being under the board of directors rather than under a committee. If the board of directors should,
Where are you?
Three.
under that number 3, where it says planning committee,
Uh-huh.
I wondered if the goals part of it should be under the board of directors on page 1.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I don't.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, the
Planning for the
board
future.
is optional.
Oh, okay, stop, please stop. Please explain one more time for me.
okay. I think rather than do the goals under the planning and steering,
Are we under committee structure or
Yes.
committee
committee
responsibilities?
responsibilities.
So please let Terry speak. Okay, thank you. Under,
Under the number 3, under committee's responsibilities,
okay,
I think the goals part of it, at the very end, should be under the board of directors' responsibilities.
I think that's kind of covered though by having it stated saying that it's planning for the future stuff.
yeah, number 2, is it really kind of targeted at number 2 on page 1?
It can go any place in there, planning for the future, and put in their goals or, somehow. But I don't think it needs to be under just the planning and steering. I think that's something we should all talk about, not have just 2 people in a meeting coming up with goals.
So maybe
But
number one,
the committee brings it to the full board. They don't make any decisions, they bring everything that they're doing to the full board.
But that's why we decided that I requested this meeting be a board meeting,
Right,
because we all sit, when they have a finance committee meeting, I sit in the audience, I can't make comments. So then we bring it back to the board, and then I make comments, and it's gonna take another month to get anything done. So this way, we could do it now, get it to, when it comes to the board, we've all agreed on it, and we can approve it.
so,
Let me just suggest then, if we go back to page 1, under board of directors, we have planning for the future, establishing policies and procedures. I think we probably would be wise to add maybe one in there that just says setting district goals.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, there you go.
this way, this one is really more related to, the operational daily goals.
Right.
But I think to Director Lincoln's comment is it should be spelled out that this is a board issue,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the goal.
so could we say planning for the future and,
setting future goals,
setting goals?
that's what I was gonna say.
On number 3, on page 2, or? are we
Board
talking-
of directors,
Number
Number
1.
page
Okay,
one.
so I just put setting district goals.
Yeah.
Okay.
planning for the future, and
And setting district goals.
Oh, you're just gonna add it to number 1?
Yes, planning for the future and setting
District goal.
district goals.
So does that mean we remove number 3 from that?
No, just that last part in goals.
So just get rid of the word,
And goals.
Well, to Paul's comment, but for the daily operations, maybe it should stay as part of the planning stream to be setting daily operational goals versus future.
I think it's fine if you just say, put a period after operations.
Yeah. My other question was, what are you considering daily operations? You don't want us involved in your day-to-day activities,
Oh, I like it, let's keep it in there.
That's
You
what I
go back
said,
to
you
page
don't
1 and you're telling us we can't do administration, and then over here we're achieving your daily goals.
Well, that's why I said you ought to get the language that was developed when
Madam
we we developed the three committees.
Yes,
So in answer to your question, Terry, the policies that we're putting forth and the general admin policies are stating the procedures that go on in there. So you're not in there on a daily basis, you know, but you're laying the foundation, the guidelines.
so is procedures a better word than operations then?
Yeah, because the way I looked at it, it was, you know,
Your interpretation of that word, operations, I agree with you that it's,
But the filtration plant's in operation. They have to follow procedures, but I mean, they're operating and that's an oversight.
but we're not doing, providing
Did you get that
oversight.
from
But-
Contra Costa? Was that a Contra Costa one?
shall we be concerned with the
I read
formulation
so
of
many
plans
things
and
on it, I'm not
policies
exactly
for
sure.
arranging, realizing, and or achieving CCSD daily operations? It doesn't say we're part of the daily operations.
I don't
It's
know.
that we are
Do you have
arranging,
those?
realizing, and are achieving. So
That's
oversight.
Original ones, cause I had the
Well,
pages,
I'd rather
the
it
stuff
be
that I worked on.
clear that it is oversight. and
Yeah. So maybe a word oversight in there?
We're
I may
overseeing.
not have it.
Yeah. Oversight or oversee?
I don't know all of yours.
Let's stay consistent because in 2, it uses the word oversight.
Okay,
And why don't we stay consistent through the document?
okay.
Maybe concerned with the formulation, oversight of
Yes,
planning
it
policies.
It was already in there, right?
Say that again?
Shall be concerned with the formulation and oversight
Oh,
of plans and
okay.
policies.
Yep, I
For
like that.
arranging, realizing.
They're not
We were looking
listening.
for stuff, so can you say that again, or did you get it?
Sorry.
Did you
So
get it?
on number 3, under committee responsibilities,
Yes.
page 2, it will say the board standing planning and steering committee shall be concerned with the formulation and oversight of plans and policies for arranging, realizing, and achieving CCSD daily operations.
Okay,
Okay? Terry, anything else on page?
Yeah,
Okay.
on page 3, the very last,
Page 2?
sentence, or on page 2,
Okay,
and on page 3, they're
oh, okay,
using the word managers for supervisors.
yep,
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that at a number of other places too.
me too, and I'll have to, I didn't catch this one, but I caught it someplace else.
Yeah, it's on the next page, top of the next page too.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good catch.
Oh, and then and then in that same sentence, the department supervisors.
Yeah.
So, or the next sentence,
Well, I tried to change it to department supervisors.
fine, you missed a couple.
I'm sure I did. Probably more than a couple.
The daunting task.
So we are still
this
on
is
page.
why we need many eyes looking
Yep.
at this thing.
So we are still on page 2, Director McVeigh?
Well, I was just trying to read through numbers 1 and 2 both. Agricultural committee concerned with promoting agriculture. And then assisting agricultural customers with regulatory compliance.
Well, we're saying the annual crop report.
Okay. And I thought the staff was handling annual crop reports.
All of our agricultural customers supply their own crop report for their.
But they're mailed out from by staff
Yes,
to the
and so,
individuals.
but we have in the past, from what I can gather, helped a lot of our customers fill theirs out. They then submit it, and then the staff accumulates it all.
So you're saying that the agricultural committee will be involved in helping the customers fill it out?
Yeah.
Hasn't been done in the past, but it can be.
I know, but, I think we need to, I think there's an opportunity for the committee. I envision a committee meeting for the agricultural committee to talk about promoting agriculture. And maybe we have a workshop on, here's the form that you get, and here's how you fill it out, type of thing. Just as a way to help the community understand it in a more, instead of it
Pretty good idea.
individualized.
And I'm wondering if we couldn't possibly add into the term sustaining, and not just promoting, but sustaining.
So that was one of my comments, is that it's actually preserving.
Preserving.
LAFCO has on their website how to preserve agriculture, and they have a little handbook.
I like
So,
that a little better.
Yeah, so I would like to see preserving put in there.
Okay.
Where are we putting that in?
Yeah,
With
Instead
promoting,
of,
Promoting and preserving agriculture.
promoting,
yeah, I think that would be.
promoting and preserving.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Promoting and
Yeah.
preserving.
Yeah.
What section are we in?
committee.
Number one, committee responsibilities, I'm sorry.
Yeah, page 2. Committee responsibilities, number 1.
We really do need to preserve it out here. Tough to do.
With promoting and
Right.
preserving,
Right.
Yes.
is that what we're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, we're interested in not just promoting it, but
Okay,
we were started as an agricultural district
right.
in the charter, so it'd be nice to try to preserve that aspect of it.
Anything else on page 2 for you?
I'm kind of reading through, Finance Standing Committee. Concern with financial management, including preparation, oversight of an annual budget, oversight of the reserve accounts, major expenditures. I feel like there's something missing in there.
There is.
Okay, a few things. And I'm not sure if we need to go in, how inclusive or exacting I want to be in that. Go ahead, you had something you wanted to say.
Well, I
see
do,
your
but
face.
it's
Go
your
ahead.
turn, it's your
I
turn.
know, I'm willing to share.
Well, because I'm piggybacking on you on all of these. So in one of the ordinances, it talks about, that the finance committee or a board member is supposed to quarterly review the general ledgers and balance it.
Correct.
And so I think we need to put something in here about the general ledger. But my question to you and perhaps to Paul is it a quarterly duty or is it a monthly duty? Because I believe the audits that we have had in the past said that general ledger needs to be balanced monthly.
That is correct.
So
That does recommend
my
that.
concern is that if we have an ordinance in one of these ordinances that says that a committee should be reviewing the general ledger, that we need to have that on this item number 2, that it talks about that. But somewhere in whatever ordinance that is to update it to hopefully say monthly instead of quarterly.
So maybe something saying reviewing general ledger based on ordinance, blah, 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 once it's found.
I think I'd like to include bank statements in that too, as part of that oversight review.
I think you're getting into the bookkeeper and the general manager's jobs, and we should provide oversight of the, not actually, because if you tie into, you're gonna look at the bank statement and
Balance it
balance
against the general
everything
ledger.
once a month, that's a lot of time for somebody, you know? Where they're already doing it, we should just go in and periodically, you know, like quarterly, you know, look at them. Or have them provide a quarterly statement to the board.
Okay, so if we, I'll have to find a stupid ordinance now,
Mm-hmm.
but it says in there that the finance committee does do it quarterly.
Mhm.
So if we have to abide by that, and it could be in the rules and regulations, then at least we have to mention that a quarterly
Right.
review. And maybe it's just verifying that the staff is doing it monthly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can buy into quarterly.
Yeah.
With that, to continue with that, but I think that needs to be clear. I think, Director McVeigh, when it says we'll be concerned with the financial management of the CCSD, that we could interpret that to be, bank statements perhaps?
We have to be careful though that we're not stepping on our general manager
Yeah,
and our bookkeeper's toes.
Just, my opinion is, I think if we just put in there that you're gonna do that it's also these duties plus the quarterly review, we can provide things like bank statements and everything to back up the quarterly
That
review.
would be good.
But I think to Director Lincoln's point, that's the better way to do it than
Right.
the forward way to do it.
Yes.
Does that make sense? In other words, I feel obligated to give you everything that backs up that quarterly review, so.
Yeah.
You'll get what you want, just don't put it in here.
Okay.
So just an FYI, when we get farther back and we come to make reconciliation, I put in there that the person who is doing the checks should not be the person that is balancing those bank statements.
I did read that. I
Yeah.
saw
Should
that.
always be a separate individual now.
Mhm.
That hasn't always happened here, however, when the bookkeeper came in the other day, she did tell Kayla that she used to balance those statements. So the checks were processed here by one person, and then she balanced those statements, but that really is a standard
Yes,
procedure, and we need to get back to that.
I agree. The only other thing I was wondering, it doesn't have to be necessarily here, is every 5 years, there is a Prop 218 process. Does the finance committee need to be involved in that? And should it be recognized here?
Well, I believe,
But it
I
says
think
customer water rates.
That's the water rates. Okay, maybe. Because that's the water rates, not the base rates, which is what you're doing with your Prop 218, is you're taking
So
up.
would you like the word water taken out?
I'm not sure. Maybe, customer rates,
There's a word missing. There's a word missing, and customer,
Yeah, I would think water rates is both.
yeah.
billing, customer billing rates, customer, I think there's a word missing, but I'm okay
The
with
way
it.
it reads is the rate of the water is the base rate and the water, how much we're charging for water.
Right,
except we do talk about water rates separately with reclamation's, schedule coming out, and what they're charging. We can talk about that as the water rate separate from the base rate, and that's the only reason I bring it up.
In my opinion, this line works, the customer water rates.
Yeah.
Because on an annual basis, you're really looking at the cost of your water received that we're purchasing, depending on the source, and your usage rate based on that.
Okay.
Every 5 years, you then do your water rates, but that also does your base rate. So I think it's covered.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
From my perspective, it would be expected that the finance committee would be part of the 218 process, and it's covered under that.
That was
you're good on page 2?
mine.
So what did we decide to add?
Nothing, customer water rates.
No, but for
Before
the
that.
general ledger.
And remove general
Paul
ledger.
has it written down.
Yeah, I just have it written down, where is it here? Oversight of an annual budget, quarterly general ledger, report statements, comma, oversight of reserve accounts, comma. We might move that a little bit. It's in there.
Director Beaver?
Well, I'm gonna ask this because I knew, it says you have to receive training every 2 years, I know, on the ethics and sexual harassment, but the Brown Act, is just reading it considered the training that is documented?
There's a video
There's actually a
that you
video.
can get.
You should have a copy of that. Yeah.
On, that explains the Brown Act, and you gotta go through that every 2 years. And they don't change it every so often.
But
The
putting,
legislature changes quite a bit.
yeah, that video or the training from JPIA it's old and poorly done, and it doesn't really go into big in-depth, it's more of like a review, and so it's lacking. And so she'll get more out of it by reading it, but I don't know, I
Oh,
don't,
boy.
you know, I
Read
don't.
the Brown Act. All the interpretations,
Well,
what different
I'll tell you.
Well,
lawyers.
since the other stuff is documented, that's why I'm
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah,
The
that was-
Brown Act is not documented.
Yeah,
Well, there was some Brown Act training in the one that they gave
The
me,
Brown Act changes.
which included all the others too, but it was on a thumb drive.
Yeah.
So you gotta be careful when you get the Brown Act training, you get the up-to-date one.
I think the bummer is that you don't get a certificate or anything for actually sitting through and watching that. But that is the baseline of what we think is required for training. It's what JPIA and all the rest of them say, that every board member, every 2 years should do at least a 2-hour training on the Brown Act, and that's where we get that video from.
Now,
So-
on that thumb drive that I was provided, if I can interrupt, it did have a little bit of a test and a printed out certificate. And I did keep one for my file and provided one for the office here.
For the Brown Act?
For that initial new board member training. It was the thumb drive.
I've never seen that for the
But
Brown Act.
not for the Brown Act.
It included the Brown Act and the ethics and everything. It was an all-in-one thumb drive. It took me
Hmm.
an hour and 58 minutes.
We'd like to see that.
Yeah, I remember
Bill,
getting.
I know it does for the ethics, but I don't.
Bill provided me
Yeah,
that right after I was on the board.
I got one for sexual harassment too,
Yes.
Yeah, it included
but
that.
I didn't get one from Brown Act.
No. Okay, anything
Well,
else?
we'll check into that for sure, but that's why it's.
Pam, anything else?
No.
Okay, so the only comment I had under committee structure number 2, did we or did we not want to add personnel to the finance committee? And the reason I say that is that in some manual, and maybe when we get them all reviewed and updated, it won't have it in there, but in some ordinance or manual, it says the MOU will be negotiated by the general manager and a member of the finance committee. Excuse me, personnel committee.
Right.
So if we could have that in there temporarily and remove it if we want to get rid of personnel?
Probably appropriate.
I think just because of the MOU, it should be in there.
Would personnel maybe go under planning and steering? Because if you have to think of the future of the district, you have to add more positions for
Typically-
operational needs.
Didn't they?
Yeah,
Everything I've read is
Saying
under,
put it back?
under the finance.
No, okay.
Everything that I read.
To clarify, planning and steering made that recommendation that personnel go away. Planning and steering did. When we had our board meeting, we talked about possibly putting it on finance. There was no final decision made in regards to that at all, so. And so I guess because we have action, we can actually put it on there if we so desire, so. So there was a thought process from the floor though, that it be, maybe go with planning and steering.
I think it's better under finance, personally.
I tend to agree with you.
Erwin, your thoughts?
Boy, I don't know. We took the idea from our general manager that the reason why there was no need for the personnel committee was because it's all spelled out in the MOU. The board still has jurisdiction over the MOU. So I don't know how you'd write it in to take care of that. Why would it be part of the finance committee, for instance?
It's not part of the finance committee, it's finance committee and personnel committee joined. Just so that it's not a separate committee, so we don't have to keep meeting with it, but it's just to cover it, because in one of our ordinances or manuals, it talks about the MOU being negotiated with the general manager and a member of the personnel committee.
Yeah, we could change that.
But that could be handled probably, if I can say, by a board decision on who to appoint to do that with the general manager
That's true.
when the MOU comes up.
Which is what we did once before.
To answer your question, I think whoever is on that planning or the personnel has to have some financial background, because you have to be concerned with the fiscal impact of the MOU.
True too.
And that's why you have a general manager.
yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, that's
So-
true.
Okay, so
Looking at it that way, though, it should be under the board of directors under page 1, personnel. That way we'd appoint somebody to work with the manager on personnel matters. You know, and you could do it as each personnel matter come up. If you had a problem, personnel problem, and, you know, then we could appoint somebody to work with you.
So number 10 could just be personnel matters.
Mhm.
Because it just says the board, which is responsible for the oversight of the organization by reviewing I don't know.
Yeah.
So here, let me just mention again
Okay.
that prior to having an employment agreement with the general manager, I think the district practices in the past had a personnel committee that handled things related to personnel issues with the staff. But right now, if that's technically a personnel committee's only responsibility would be to manage me, because your only responsibility is the general manager.
Correct.
My responsibility is personnel.
Right.
So, if we still have some old stuff sitting out there that says the personnel committee is supposed to be involved in the future MOU,
Yep,
then we need to change that, not the
I don't know
other
where it
aspect of
is.
things. Now, to Director Lincoln's comment, which is very true. So, in November, this board appointed me as your negotiator for the MOU, and I brought you back all the reports, and eventually we went through it. Next time we have an MOU, you could appoint me and one of your members if you wanted to, but I think it's best if we felt that mutually had a necessity for that. So, in my humble opinion, I think it's better to keep what we have here and change whatever we had in the past that said that the personnel committee was involved.
I can agree with that.
It made sense back then when we didn't have a contracted general manager
so if we,
who's not covered by the MOU.
so this general administrative policies will come before the board on May 17th. When it does so, that then will be the approving factor for getting rid of personnel on the committee structures. Okay, so, okay. All right, that is page 2, that was all my comments. Moving on to page 3.
I don't have any comments on page 3, Madam Chairman.
Either.
Well, I think one that we had, Emily may have pointed this out, that there's an old ethics and whistleblower ordinance. So.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yes,
Future work.
that's why I said update, it's old. But
I think
this
you have,
this can go forward, and then when that gets updated, we can change what's in there.
So I don't wanna refer to ordinance 2004-07 at all. I don't wanna refer to that ordinance because it is so outdated. It talks about the old union in there. It talks about an audit and a policy oversight committee, which
And
we.
Madam Chairman, you're gonna have to come up with a new ordinance,
Yeah,
because that's all we have right now.
I think though, to the chair's point, we could just edit it here saying ethics and whistleblower refer to current ethics and whistleblower policy. And then when we get it updated and changed, we won't have to change the ordinance number in here.
Okay,
oh, there you go.
there you go. But while we're on that. So one of the things in this ordinance, the 2004-07, that, Paul, you need to make note of, because it says, in there, let me read the whole sentence. The general manager has full power and authority to employ and discharge all employees consistent with the MOU between the district and the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Union and other provisions of law. Prescribe the duties of employees consistent with district policy and fix and alter compensation of employees subject to the approval of the board. So that means you can't give anybody a raise or alter their compensation without getting approval from us. So just be aware of that, and that's in there twice, I think, that it talks about,
Well, it's in the current new MOU, so we're gonna get rid of that.
okay, so, and on that, it says changes in director's compensation. Changes in the compensation rate of the board of directors or district employees will require approval of the board of directors during an open meeting. So, yeah, if you don't like that, you need to get rid of it.
Except the director compensation by law has to be done in an open meeting.
We did that.
Yeah. And it cannot be more than a 5% increase.
Did you not approve an ordinance when you did the ethics thing, or was it just the policy that you changed, which had the travel per diem?
It had the per diem, we changed the mileage to the standard or current federal because it listed an old one.
Right, but was that a policy or an ordinance?
It was policy,
Okay,
and it should have, it would have a policy number to it.
Madam Chair,
yes.
what were you reading out of there?
Ordinance 2004-07.
All right. So we're gonna say instead refer to current.
Ethics policies,
Ethics and whistleblower.
policy. Okay, I have more on this page. Anybody else on this page? Went out of order.
That's okay. I was wondering down, last section, timely, receipt approval, payments, whatnot. It states about payments being at set times for invoices and whatnot. I'm wondering, and I'm not sure if I read it in here or someplace else, where it said we would take advantage of discounts where they were offered. Where's the next page? Okay, and then it's covered. Okay.
So my concern with the accounts payable management and the overview, it talks about purchase orders, but should we not mention perhaps our procurement policy? Because that's where we got ourselves in trouble in the past, I think, because we didn't have a procurement policy, and I believe we do now, right? Didn't you guys approve that in June or?
I believe so, but the
July.
procurement was basically relating to grants or, because Cal OES came in with those.
Yeah, but I think if you
findings.
spend over a certain amount of money, you have to have don't you have to have a procurement policy to handle that?
Possibly if it's a planned item versus an emergency repair, because the emergency repairs, you didn't have to have that.
Well, it just says the vendor invoice should be supported by an approved purchase order when necessary and should be approved by the department supervisor of the department responsible for the purchase. So it was a good cost control. We got in trouble in the past. I just wanted to have something in there that talked about procurement.
Yeah.
If that's an appropriate
Emily?
place to do it.
Have you seen our procurement policy?
I have not.
And that can be worked on.
Yeah.
That's all.
They updated it in June or July. Oh, you were all flitting around in Alaska.
Big smile.
Yes, I was. I've gone
I'm going.
4 miles to Alaska.
Okay, so on that same overview, when we're down there with the 1, 2, and 3, do we need anything about saying about within budget allocations or not over budget, or, so it says a primary objective for accounts payable and cash disbursements is to ensure that disbursements are properly reviewed and approved, invoices are processed timely. I just wanted to make sure we had something within budget allocations because we've been spending over budget allocations. And I know it was difficult in the past with our budget, but now we should have a budgeted amount. I guess that's not the primary objective for accounts payable and cash.
So is this maybe falling under, manager's duties to bring that to the board when we are going beyond due
Well,
to
shoot.
inflation or something?
Well, absolutely. So maybe it's not an appropriate spot right there.
No.
Okay, I'm good, I'm good. Okay,
That's part of the reason why you have your quarterly review, by the way, as a finance committee.
yeah.
Yeah.
So page 4, so, Director Fuss,
Nothing on page 4.
okay, Director Lincoln,
My only concern is taking advantage of any discounts the vendors have and avoiding penalties or late fees. You know, I've only seen a few,
That's in there somewhere.
but there have been a couple of times that we
Yeah, it
paid
is at the top.
penalties or late fees, and that's just, nicking us in the knee every time.
Well, I think we're, yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, just real quick, the previous page, number 2, invoices are processed in a timely manner to take advantage of any cash discount.
Right.
The top of the next page,
Take
it's
advantage,
the
it's all
policy to
there.
take advantage. I think Director McVeigh's point, though, is very well taken. And, definitely when we had the bookkeeper out for a couple of weeks, we get impacted
It's
by
gonna happen.
timeliness, but,
Right.
yeah, it's a good focus.
It's the customer's dime.
So anything on page 4 for you, so Director Beaver? No. Okay, for me, I just wanna make sure that the expense reimbursement and travel and entertainment, that the ordinance up at the top, 2000-05, that we put that on our list to update too, because if that has to do with the policy,
It's in the second file there.
okay.
Also, wasn't that updated in the MOU for reimbursement and travel?
No, that was, July's board
Yeah,
meeting.
this one has to do with anybody traveling and what the per diem is and what the going cost of the travel rate. And they made it very generic so that it would just follow the Internal Revenue Service documents. Okay, so,
Shouldn't that one have, rather than refer to the ordinance, have just refer to the policy also?
yeah,
Probably.
But really, to Caitlin's point, there is in the MOU a portion related to employees and travel, and Emily's caught that.
And it's,
Right.
it's
And it's in there.
referenced in the new one.
okay,
Approved by the manager.
great catch. Okay, we're still on page 4 because I had a concern. Last paragraph. I would like to change a word.
The check signers?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, if we could change in the second sentence from the bottom, properly checked, instead of say checked, say reviewed. There's too many checks in that sentence. Check signer shall examine it to ensure that each item has been properly checked prior to signing the check. So if we could say properly reviewed prior to signing.
Review isn't she?
Yeah, it would make me happy.
All right.
Okay, so we are now on page 5. So this is voided checks and stop payments. So Director Fuss,
I have nothing on page 5.
okay. Director Lincoln,
I had nothing.
Director McFay,
I also have nothing.
Director Beaver.
Nothing.
Okay,
Madam Chair, real quick,
Yes.
before we get to yours, I do want to make a comment that Director Lincoln had brought up, the petty cash policy that wasn't clear before, so that's why we moved it into this section, so.
And I liked it.
Well, Madam Chairman, I did have a question about
Sure.
page 5. Under record keeping associated with independent contractors, says, the district shall obtain a completed form, W-9 or equivalent substitute documentation. What does that amount to?
Who knows, I was in there before.
That was in there before, so,
I've always just dealt with W-9s,
right.
It's
Or
either W-9 or you don't work
depending
it.
on whether you're an independent contractor or a vendor.
I just don't know what equivalence.
So there was pages and pages and pages describing what an independent contractor was and all
Oh,
these
yeah,
test
it goes on
questions
and
and
on.
all that stuff, and I got rid of it all. And
Yeah.
just put this.
Yeah,
So we can remove equivalent
Well,
substitute
I'm not
documentation.
unhappy with it there, I just don't know what the heck it means. I've never seen it before.
Yeah, for some reason, the district's previous policies had a lot of stuff, I think we could still eliminate some of this as well, related to the independent contractors and potentially becoming employees, and as far as I'm concerned, it's very clear If you are employed at the district in a job classification that's identified in our MOU, then you're an employee. If you're not, you're not, and there's no question about that. But I do know that there have been in the past, prior to, some of the changes in state law, in which, districts would basically hire an independent contractor, and then that independent contractor would try to claim CalPERS benefits or something like that. So I know that's probably why it was so convoluted in the past in here, but it's not necessary.
When I checked on that with someone, because we had concerns with that when we found that when we were reviewing documents, the person indicated to me that you can do that because some of the contractors wanna have state taxes or federal taxes taken out of their, checks, and she says there was nothing illegal about that, so. We did inquire on that. Okay, so,
I think they should be
I
either
agree.
a contractor or an employee.
I agree,
Yeah.
I agree, I'm just telling you what
Yeah.
I was told.
I'm not confused.
Yeah. Okay, so on page 5, I had a question in regarding petty cash. I had no idea what an impressed fund was until I looked it up to see what that word was, which is just another word for petty cash. So do we need to be consistent with saying instead of petty cash, you call it an impressed fund, and then later you say petty cash fund? So it was just, are we just gonna use them interchangeably? First paragraph says impressed, second paragraph says petty cash.
I think we should, at the end of all this, have a list of all the acronyms and other things, so we know what we're talking about.
It was just a little bit, I like changing it to impressed fund, but then
Just
it's,
make it petty cash.
It changes back and forth. you're right.
yeah.
Easy enough.
I mean, the financial word is
The
probably.
pleasure of the board, it actually is an impress
Yep.
account.
Yes,
But
it
most
is.
people don't know what that is, so I stayed with petty cash for the rest of it. But whatever you like.
I
Maybe
say,
we'll just
just
do
change
it
it, make it petty cash and
I
it all.
think it's petty cash.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then,
It does make us feel really smart though when we say.
Doesn't it though?
so I need some financial advice in regards to, does petty cash not require approval ahead of time? I mean, can you just go out and buy something, a little part, and come back in and say, here's my receipt, hand me the money? I don't know, I don't remember. I mean, we had petty cash, but it was mostly for just making change for the window.
We had to we could get verbal approval
Right.
when we were in, but then you had to follow it up with the paperwork.
Huh?
Right, yeah. It requires the receipt, no reimbursement.
I mean, it happens both ways. Most of the time, an employee gets sent out, can you go pick up this? You know, can you take the bills to the post office or whatever? And it's verbally pre-approved, but sometimes when the guys are out and they need a part right now, they might not necessarily call into the office for that. But I think most of the time it's pre-approved.
So can I,
The thing is that if they come back with a receipt and it's something that's iffy or not legitimate, it's not gonna get approved.
so I don't have any cash on me, I don't have any credit cards on me, I don't carry any of that. Can you give me $10 out of that petty cash, and I can go down and buy it? And then I go in a car wreck and nobody knows anything? I just,
We usually, when we did petty cash, there was a limit on how much we'd spend with petty cash without approval. So you would
Makes
spend
sense.
$10, without getting pre-approval for, 10 pencils.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna buy 100 pencils, you're gonna need to get.
So,
Madam Chairman, that second paragraph there, I think addresses what you're talking about. All disbursements in the petty cash fund must be accompanied by completed and approved petty cash voucher receipts are required, is that?
Sure, but I'm headed to town and you wanna give me just money because we don't know how much it's gonna cost.
Oh,
We
That was
have
still
we
a
have a
voucher.
form that we filled out
Saying that you took
saying
20 bucks?
we were given so much money.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
So
what
the
I-
voucher will cover that.
the voucher will cover that,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
So with what Pam said in regards to the monetary amount though, I agree, because I actually had that written down. Yes?
The other thing you have to realize is that petty cash isn't necessarily always, I'm handing you dollar bills. Checks get written, you know, if they have a bunch of receipts that they're turning in, a check can be, a reimbursement can be through
Right, not
a
the petty
check,
cash.
Yeah.
right.
Correct.
but it goes under petty cash.
And that has.
It would still go under petty cash?
Yeah.
Okay. So should there be a monetary amount? I guess $300?
I personally don't think so.
Either wipe out the.
Well, how much do you need to work the counter with people coming in to pay their bills? That's really,
Well, you see in here that we try to keep about $300 in petty cash as just sort of the operating petty cash fund.
But every time that we had petty cash, it was not for large amounts, it was for the small
Right,
incidentals.
right.
So if they're gonna spend $300, to me, you gotta get that approved.
No, that
before
won't
it-
get.
oh, yeah.
So petty cash is
Yeah.
just for a little bit of money that you need to go buy 3 pencils.
Right.
Well, like Emily said, if it looks weird or suspicious, you're not gonna get paid back the money. So, I mean, that's whoever's handling that.
No, I think, but I think what your point is, for maybe saying for, petty cash can be used for something less than $50, or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I just picked a number.
That's a
Yeah.
reasonable number.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a reasonable number, right?
It really is.
I think if it's over that, you're gonna get an invoice and a receipt, and we're gonna probably reimburse you with a check anyway. so,
Yeah.
like you do sometimes anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So
when you
what do you wanna do?
put $50 as kind of like,
Maximum or something.
I don't know, I think that's kinda, if on a weekend they're out there working
yeah,
and they need something, whether it's, 50 or 300, if they need it right then to fix the line,
yeah.
they can't get anybody, but they've got a supervisor saying, go do it. They can always get hold of a supervisor to approve it verbally over the phone. Go get it because haven't they got credit cards too?
Or charge accounts.
But see, that wouldn't go under necessarily petty cash, and they get reimbursed under maybe a different line item.
Yeah, sure, that's what you do, that's what we do now.
Well, if you have a charge account like they do with Ace Hardware, you go down, you charge it to your account.
Yeah,
The bill, the monthly payment comes in and a check is written, so it goes against that budget, item.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so could you explain, oh, go ahead.
Well, like Kayla said, petty cash doesn't really get used that often anymore.
No.
They're cutting checks to reimburse the
Correct.
employees that have gone out, okay?
Yeah.
and mostly,
I,
as Director Lincoln said, because we've set up accounts with everybody that we need in emergency anyway, so it's kind of like,
I don't really feel like there needs to be a limit,
Right.
personally,
You've got checks for less than $10 to people.
because if it's not legitimate, it's not gonna get approved.
Well, so approval then has to be through either a supervisor or manager.
I guess it probably has to do with abuse, Emily, is that in the past, those of us who have been managers of petty cash just want to ensure that it's not being abused.
I get that.
So I guess that
Yeah,
would be.
I
That's
never,
up to you.
without my initials on a receipt, I never paid.
I got refused before because I didn't have the right receipt, things like that. No,
Okay, $50 limit
I
or
don't
no
think there
limit?
should be any, none.
Oh, you mean on petty cash? I
Mhm.
thought you said $300.
That's what the amount is.
Yeah, that's the amount, but
Yeah, oh,
the
you're
amount,
talking about for individual.
Right.
I see, yeah.
So, Beverly, in answer to your concern, I put in here that the petty cash should have its own general ledger line, and that line should be balanced every single month. And what I mean by that is that the bookkeeper is gonna have all of the receipts, and she's gonna go in there and physically count that money, and it better add up to what the GL line says. And if it doesn't, then there's an issue.
Yeah, I saw that you had added that, and I had a little question about that, so that was all I was gonna ask you. Okay, so are you having two people count petty cash, or just one person?
Always should be double custody.
Yes, thank you.
It's the account clerk, admin, and bookkeeper.
Okay, all right, I'm happy with that. All right, are we on to the next page? Okay, page 6. All right, we are going to let General Manager Paul start with payroll administration.
Well, I think, first of all, in the first part, we wanted to be at least clear related to the new MOU that basically, it used to be you got paid within 24 hours at the end of the pay period, which was very challenging for processing and everything else. And then the other thing too that we noticed and have updated is the personnel files and kind of what's located in there. So this is a pretty good list, but I thought I would have Kayla, who's also kind of subs as our HR person, who's helped me update our stuff, talk about some more things to add to that list.
Before we jump to that, can we deal with that last sentence? Because I think we need to answer that.
Did you say that you were going to pay for someone to produce an employee manual?
Right, do we really need to do this? You know, why are we looking for someone to create an employee handbook if we have the MOU?
Because
the MOU is a really bad employee personnel handbook.
yeah, it's not a personnel manual.
Yeah.
And so what normally you have is you have your MOU, but you have a personnel manual that refers
Policies,
to
procedures.
procedures and has a bunch of.
Donated leave policy for one.
And
Exactly. I agree with you. I just, it's
Because
there, we needed to discuss it.
Because it's important that the employee, receive a copy of that.
Correct.
So that, for two reasons, one, that they know, but also then you have a way to keep them accountable when there's documentation of bad behavior or whatever, that you can document where it was given to them on a certain time. And that, with California law, you need to have that exact documentation of where it is.
They should be signing an acknowledgement of having received it.
Definitely, yes.
So that, to that point, so yes, so we do have, legal government services, they provide HR and much other stuff, they have a template that they were kind of aghast that we had somewhere, because in the previous administrative policies, there was a one-liner that said that the handbook was the MOU, and you know how bad the last MOU was. So one of the things that Kayla has instituted and is gonna wanna add to this list in the personnel file is the very thing that Director Beaver mentioned, which is a signed, co-signed receipt of their MOU. We made sure everybody got, that was a long period of time to print, put it together a binder and a little sheet and gave it to everybody, and they had to sign it. And I happen to know that that was one thing that people were reading a lot before they left in the last month or two. But so I'll let Kayla talk a little bit about some of the other stuff in the list.
Yeah, so, items that we currently already have in the, personnel files are signed offer of employment, signed job descriptions, signed acknowledgement of the MOU, benefit enrollment applications.
What?
Benefit enrollment applications, union due enrollment, or waive, either or, evaluations, and then write-ups and disciplinary actions.
You have blank forms for those in there.
Correct.
Initially.
Well, if they have any of those,
Well,
a write-up
okay.
or.
I wasn't sure if you even included the blank forms in case they were ever needed.
Those are just kept in
Okay.
a file. If they're needed, then the manager or supervisor would, that list that, Beverly had sent, to Paul earlier this week, it did mention some other, well, I covered most of them, because we already do have those, but there was one in there, it's called a notice to employee. When I first started here, actually identified that was not included in my onboarding packet. So I went to Paul, asked him if we should get this document in everybody's personnel files. And I checked on JPIA's website as well, and they have an onboarding checklist. And that document was not identified on there for some reason. So we just left it out, but if we need to add it, we can add it.
Yeah, well, one thing we did take a look at that list. The offer of employment covers most of the notice stuff that was on the thing that you said.
It does. Yeah, the notice to employee also has like, workers' compensation policy, number, the phone number to call to file a claim if there was ever needed. And then also identifies how we accrue sick time. So if it's front-loaded, private sector is usually front-loaded 24 hours at time of hire. Or if you accrue on an hourly basis, you just have to identify that on that form. But all the rest is pretty much identified on the offer of employment. So hourly wage, rate, their work location, what else? Overtime rate. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
Everybody's got a question?
Well, I have a question for Kayla.
Okay.
So, is this a true statement? They do not have to sign up for the healthcare and all that? If they choose not?
They still have to fill out the enrollment form and mark that they're waiving.
Okay, so that's what I was
Yeah,
saying.
but if they're part-time and do not qualify for the
Right.
benefits, then no, they don't have to fill out.
Okay, but there is a waiver if they choose not
Yes.
to do it.
Yeah.
Because if their spouse has a different policy.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, but that needs to be in the personnel file that they opted that way.
I have a question for Kayla too.
Okay.
Signed acknowledgement of social security non-participation.
Yeah,
How,
so,
how can you not pay social security?
we're not,
No,
unfortunately.
teachers don't have to.
No, and I didn't have to,
Right.
but they do
So-
here.
PERS people
Don't you
don't have to?
So because of how hers,
So one of the things we found out, sorry, I'll let you answer that question, I was not aware of it when I started here, but the district decided quite a few years ago in its last agreement with CalPERS to not participate in Social Security. We do participate in Medicare.
That's what we had. We had put so much into Medicare and then we didn't put anything into social security,
And
so.
so now that we have a lot of new employees at the district, there is interest in participating, but that's a process that we have to go through.
Yeah, okay. I just never seen
No,
that before.
yeah, I had that marked too.
yeah, and it's actually called a windfall provisions, agreement.
Oh, like double dipping, yeah, you can't double
Yeah.
dip.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what killed me.
Yeah. Okay, I had some other issues on this. Did you have any that you needed to point out? Yeah.
Yes, I do, if you don't mind.
No.
And we're done with that one question mark about the employee manual, so we're gonna put together an employee manual. Is that
Right.
what-
Yeah, they will.
Okay. Now, the second thing is under the following form documents and information. One thing that's missing in there, in my estimation, is that any employee evaluations should be kept in there as well.
She did mention
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
So
she-
that-
oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And then Pam Beaver brought up a very good thing. If an employee is not performing up to standards and there is a corrective action plan that's done, that should be in there as well.
And she also mentioned that one.
Okay.
So there was a couple, when I was doing the research on these that should not be in here. Number 2, the applicant references work and personal, said it wasn't supposed to be on that website that I sent you, from the state, was it state or some law firm?
It's, yeah, I was gonna say that, that's on the application, so, I
And
mean,
you gotta
unless
have
we
the
remove it from the
application
application, then.
Oh, okay, well then, if it's on the application, then you could, it's
Remove that.
remove that one.
Yeah.
The other one was, I thought, let's see, number 6, the I-9, it said it should be maintained separately. And then that one, though, it said to have a whole file of everybody's
Yes.
I-9s.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, I don't know that yet here, but my previous employer, I did keep binders of current employee, alphabetical order, all the I-9s in one spot, and then previous employees have to be kept for so many years after.
Okay.
Doesn't the auditor look at those?
Yeah, if we were to ever get audited, yes, and want them separate from the personnel,
Yeah.
so they're not flowing.
And
through the
yeah, and that's what I
personnel.
read, said it was easier for an auditor.
Yeah.
So my other one would be,
Should I put in parentheses then, kept in a separate binder,
What?
Yeah,
well,
because it's required, but we're saying that it's in the personnel file, so in parentheses on that one, should I say kept in a separate binder, or something to that effect?
file.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
so then my other question is number 4 and number 10. Are they really almost the same thing?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, and then, training records. I've always had training records put in personnel files.
It is already.
Okay. Cause, all right, and then,
Do you have that on your?
emergency contacts was another one that it said should be in there. So if somebody got hurt or something, you could go right to their personnel file for the
Yeah,
emergency
that's
contact.
Is that on the application though?
I don't know.
No.
They used to be on mine.
We have it on a different form.
We do have it on a different form.
Okay.
Didn't identify that one, but yes,
Let's put it on the list.
yeah, we'll add it to the list.
Okay, and then we talked about the compensation, job descriptions, performance review, I know you talked about, but that kind of ties in with perhaps,
Evaluation.
Evaluation.
yeah, disciplinary action. The other thing I saw was an exit interview that you've been doing with people, it said perhaps add the exit interview to their personnel file. So that was,
Yes, so we keep the separation, well, I keep the separation documents, in a separate little folder inside the personnel file, so we'll have their final check copy, an acknowledgement that they, received their final check, whether they requested it to be mailed or they came in and picked it up, as well as their copy of their final time card and the, document you just said.
Exit interview.
Yes.
okay, all right, and then for me, on the last line, documentation of all changes in payroll status shall be maintained in each employee's personnel file. So I just wondered why it wasn't listed up above then, if you're going to do that. So it was just odd that you have this sentence just hanging out there, when if you just added it to the top, you wouldn't even need that sentence.
Where is it?
The bottom,
Very last sentence.
the very last sentence on that page.
Okay.
And I guess that's actually compensation information, so, but that's changes, so. I just didn't, it just was weird that it should have been just added up.
Yeah, so any big changes, I guess, to payroll status, they would have to, like, if they wanna change their withholdings, that would be a new W-4 or the state withholding E-9.
Yeah,
But it needs to be updated in the software, so you can't get rid of that.
Correct.
Completely.
okay. And maybe I was just misunderstanding what you were saying. So documentation of all changes in payroll status shall be maintained. Well, you're saying that the changes,
Merit
Okay,
1, Merit 4.
I guess, leave it,
And updated in the software.
yeah, something, okay.
But that could also be, like a pay increase or
Yeah, it
something.
could be anything, yeah.
Okay, we are on page 7. Director Fuss,
I have no additions or subtractions or.
Director Lincoln,
No, nothing.
Director McVeigh.
Just looking at the time cards, everything is handwritten, and, I know in the past it's been abused. And I'm just wondering if, and let the board discuss, do we need a time clock?
No.
I'm fine, I know in the past there has been abuse.
Oh, you know,
People showed up 15 minutes
Oh,
late,
yeah.
and then just wrote in that they were on time. I just wanted to bring it out in the open.
How many employees do we have now? 10?
9.
I think there's probably a magic number where that would be important to have. I agree with you, in most instances, I would like to see that, with the way it works here, with people coming in, and so I understand, the non-desire for it. So, but yeah, we should just keep that in our minds.
It would work really good for office staff. It doesn't work at all for people that are out in the field.
I agree with
So-
you.
Yeah.
I think it leads to potential temptation,
Mm.
is all. I was only 5 minutes late, I was only 8 minutes later.
We worked in a school and they put time clocks in for the teachers. So they would come in their pajamas, punch in, and then go home.
Oh, yeah.
Get ready.
I fired someone for having a friend clock me in.
Yeah.
Fired them both, actually.
So the only,
Can I just say that I think we instituted a significantly more rigorous oversight than in the past. I'd kind of like to give us some time on that for a while.
Oh, yeah.
The second thing is that we are considering, the potential for doing payroll different down the line. QuickBooks payroll is, there's a lot of discussion about whether or not they're gonna continue to support the desktop payroll processing. So we may, get somebody like ADP or something like that to do it, and you know what, you do a lot of stuff on your phone and everything else, and that would kind of be a modification of that.
Time clocks or a computer set up for you to log in.
Right. And what
Same thing.
that just helps with your field staff, right? So when they get called straight to a leak at 7:30 in the morning,
yeah.
they
Correct.
put that in and they don't have to remember.
I think
to write
TJ
it.
does that with PG&E, that's what she does.
Sure.
Yeah.
A lot
So-
of security guards, like North State Security and stuff like that, they have apps on their phone where they just punch in to
Right.
clock in and out on their phone.
Yeah, and to add to that, I know ADP, they, have the option to like pinpoint location, and you can even set up like a geo-fencing, so then the clocking cannot happen in Reading.
See, yeah.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, on the top of page 7, so up above where it says preparation of time cards, it is the responsibility of the bookkeeper. Would you prefer accountant instead of bookkeeper? That was my only thing. Is that, we talk about, we kind of say bookkeeper and we say, accountant, and that's what she is, but
The position is bookkeeper/accountant's
Yeah, I
position.
think that's what we
so do we wanna,
decided on.
Okay.
The position would be, and that's how it's in it for Selma.
Yeah.
So then-
Except that
Bookkeeper accountant.
my only question is, it's like, in the past, that wasn't the case. So,
It's kind of interchangeable. I think it's fine to leave it the way it is, actually, because that's.
I don't. Bookkeeper to me is not an accountant. A bookkeeper is a lower paid person. It just, the connotation of it is not as good as an accountant. So if that was my job, I would rather be called accountant than bookkeeper. So if we wanna be technical, then we should use exactly what her title is, and a bookkeeper /
but that's what
accountant.
her title is now, that's not what it's been in the past on my.
Correct.
So,
So just make it bookkeeper/accountant.
Yeah.
Well, that would follow the job description, wouldn't it?
That's.
Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go.
That's her title.
So we're on
That
page
is the job classification, check it out on our website.
page 8, and it's, the top of the page is the general checking account. So Director Fuss?
Yeah, I've just got a question again. It says, on the general checking account, it says here, about excess funds in this account are transferred to short-term investments when feasible. I asked this question before, and I don't know if we got a good answer. Do we have an investment account, investment policy?
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't think we do. We don't have any funds right now that we can put in any investment, but I know that there are some government agencies that do. I remember that some government agencies used to put their investments in what's called REITs, you remember?
Yeah,
that?
Right.
oh, yeah.
Real estate investment funds. I don't know if they still are around.
Well, they still are around, but no government entity has the guts to do anything.
Well, is it to our advantage to develop an investment policy?
I believe so.
Yes.
There's a couple of reasons, and it's a good comment. The Special Districts Association now has a LAIF, LAIF type of investment. That's another one that's sort of short term. And most of them are really designed so that government agencies can put money into it and get maybe 1 or 2% more than just in a savings account, but also makes it safe and you can get it quickly.
Right.
So I do think that there's something to that. We don't currently have the resources to make any investments or anything, but I think as we go down, the finance committee should work on that.
I do have a question along those lines. We have some restricted reserve accounts.
Yes.
Water treatment plant, $200,000.
Yeah.
It's gotta be maintained until the loan's paid off. Why isn't that in an investment?
Because we don't have a policy to do that.
There we go. You see what we could be earning
Yeah.
on those restricted accounts especially?
Yeah, you gotta have an investment policy so that you can put money in for the investment, but you gotta be able to get it out pretty quick too.
Right.
You know, I mean,
And
you
with the
get-
exception of the restricted reserve accounts,
Yeah,
those are long-term accounts typically.
Yeah.
So we could have been earning for the last 20 plus years on that one account.
Yeah.
Okay. And we could get a higher interest rate, 3-year, 5-year situation and then roll it over.
Not much of one now, but it's still
No,
better,
but
it's
it's
still
better.
better than nothing.
It's something.
Yeah.
Something.
So, maybe that should be on the agenda for the next finance
that's a
committee.
good idea.
Okay?
Might look at 6-month CDs or something like that.
Exactly.
Director Lincoln, anything on page 8?
Nope.
Director McVeigh?
I'm fine.
Director
That was the
Beaver?
one thing I
No.
wanted.
The only thing I had is the part that Emily added under bank account reconciliation, the last line underneath the bank account reconciliation. The bank account reconciliation should be done by a person other than the employee entering invoices and processing the checks. So when you say done by a person other than the employee, are you wanting a staff, or is that a possibility of a board member task?
Well, she's not gonna like it, but I'm gonna point to the left. It would
Typically,
be
yeah.
logical that she would be balancing
Yeah.
those statements.
And if you don't mind, I would just say, it's good to have this, but I'm gonna request that we, have a modification that the reconciliation should be reviewed by a person other than the employee that does it. We don't have enough people and time and manpower to have, so, you know, we already are having the admin assistant and the bookkeeper accountant working together on things, bifurcating some things like
Right.
reviewing time cards before they go to the payroll clerk to
Yeah.
type them in, by reviewing invoices and stuff before they go in, and kind of vice versa. But, you know, somebody doing that reconciliation would be, I think, a little bit overtaxing. I think it should be reviewed.
Well, that's why I was wondering whether or not with the board having, you know, like doing quarterly general ledger reviews.
And I think too, I mean, this is something that has really challenged our current capacity to actually get this stuff. This has to be done every month, because otherwise our bookkeeping falls behind. And so I just want to make sure that it both is getting done, but also getting reviewed, at least make sure that there aren't any mistakes. Emily?
So, I'm pretty adamant about this, because I've seen a lot of embezzlement happen in different organizations, and this is where it happens. When the person who is processing those checks is also balancing those statements, there is absolutely no oversight.
No, I agree with the
Yeah, and
statement.
that says it right there, that
Yeah.
we should have somebody else.
So I understand where Paul's coming from, but hopefully in the near future, when possibly we're not doing the statements here and a few other things, that there would be time for Kayla to do that.
But a good review too would catch a lot of that.
Yeah.
If either Paul or Kayla reviews what the bookkeeper has done every month, they should catch that.
Yeah, I think, that's why, I mean, Emily's right.
In the
I
perfect
just-
world.
Yes, in an ideal world, I just think if we just need it to be, I would argue that let's at least go with reviewed, signed off and reviewed by either admin or the general manager, or somebody other than the bookkeeper. Hey, when we get enough time, then that other person could do it, but I don't think we just have enough time, and what I'm worried about is, we'll be 3 months behind, the finance committee's gonna be beating me up for not having up-to-date reports.
We need to
So-
do that.
Just as long as you understand, when you're reviewing, that you are, so when our bank statements come from Tri-County, does it give us a picture of the cleared check?
It can, I don't think that's an added pages, we don't always get those, but.
Because what happens, first of all, it's a deterrent. If a person knows that somebody else is looking at that.
Yeah.
It's a deterrent from somebody to try to do something. But if you're not thoroughly looking at those checks, it's very easy for a person in that position to go in and write a check and forge the check, and you're not gonna know if they're not gonna be putting that check in front of you. You're only gonna catch that when you balance the statement. So when you do the review, you have to really be looking.
I agree with you, except as directors, there are some of us who actually have to sign those checks. So they can't just forge a check without us actually having approved it.
Are you
Yes, they
kidding me?
can.
They're gonna forge my signature.
That can happen.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
exactly what will happen.
But-
It has happened.
But that's why I think the review, the bookkeeper will do the reconciliation.
Okay.
One of us will then take a look at a review, and we're gonna take that statement, and we're gonna say, here's all our check numbers, here's our list of checks that were written, here they are checked up. Hey, here's a check that doesn't match what was written, then we will know.
Another checks and balance is the monthly activity reports.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that.
Help, so when you throw in the activity reports along with the rest, we should be okay.
Okay, so before we move on,
Hold on. So what Kayla is saying is, it doesn't come with a statement, but you can go online and see those checks and print them out. So when you got ready to do your review, you could randomly
Yeah.
do that.
Right.
Okay.
All right, so what are we changing this to?
Should be reviewed by a person other than the employee entering the invoices.
Should be reviewed.
okay, so that ends our general administrative policy review.
Holy macaroni.
That was just, what, 1/6 of everything?
I think it'll go maybe a little faster. But great dialogue, everybody. I think that was awesome. We had
This
a
is
lot of-
what we wanted. We wanted
Right.
the group, the community, everybody to provide input, to be looking at this. We need multiple eyes and perspectives, so,
So
yes.
can I make a suggestion? Since the reserve fund policy partial. Can we move on to these other ones that are complete?
Well, Madam Chairman, with the reserve policy, I have some comments about the reserve policy,
Oh,
so.
I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of comments, but what I'm saying is, it's an unfinished document. It's
Yeah.
not finished.
Okay, you're talking about the changes to the reserve policy then?
Right, we've
Okay,
made changes,
because we
but,
have the reserve policy from 2008, but it was reviewed and approved to extend in 2016.
right. And now this document here is a partial change, partial review of that document. And what I'm saying is, like, the next one in line is the district vehicle policy, and
Okay,
it is a completed document.
okay.
So maybe we
You
could go
want-
through the completed ones first and get through them quicker, and then go back to that one, because that's a difficult one.
That's up to the
anyway.
chair.
Oh, I see.
Oh, the reserve fund policy you think is difficult? Okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay, all right, so we're just going to bypass it for now.
Okay.
Okay, because I had lots of things on there.
Yes, I'm sure you do.
We've been at this for an hour and 40, how about 5?
Sure.
Take a break.
All right?
Okay, we're gonna break, and the time is 7:41, and we'll come back at 7:46.
Approximately.